WWE Chief Content Officer Paul Triple H Levesque reportedly is really upset that WWE didn't sign Will Ospreay. We'll let you know the details on that, plus the very latest when it comes to the Janelle Grant lawsuit against Vince McMahon, with Grant's representatives not ruling out further legal action against Dr. Carlin Colker. Another person named in that lawsuit, of course, was John Laurenitis. He reportedly is divorced from Kathy Collis. Whilst not explicitly named in the lawsuit, Brock Lesnar was featured in it. There had been returns he could be set to return to WWE programming, but are those rumours quite wide of the mark? An update on AEW's Library landing on the Max streaming service, as well as the future or lack thereof of Battle of the Bouts following the brand new AEW WBD media rights deal. Could Meta 4 be on their way to the WWE main roster? Gunther vs CM Punk reportedly is scheduled for Survivor Series. Scott D'Amore reveals he originally had a non-compete clause with TNA Wrestling following his departure earlier this year. Plus, we have the ratings for Monday's edition of Raw on USA Network. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's begin with a report suggesting Triple H was not too pleased that WWE didn't sign Will Ospreay, of course, with the aerial assassin going over to All Elite Wrestling. Contrary to his grind comments, Triple H was reportedly, quote, really upset about failing to sign Will Ospreay for WWE. This is according to Ibo, who reported on WrestlePurist Raw Review what the WWE Chief Content Officer thinks about Will Ospreay. He said, quote, he thinks Will Ospreay is a tremendous wrestler and he's salty that he didn't get him. The grind comments was just him venting. He wanted Will, he knows how great Will is, and he didn't get him and he was really upset about it. I spoke to someone in WWE at the time and was like, quote, well, then why didn't they pay him more? And I was told it wasn't Hunter's call how much money he was going to be offered and his hands were tied in that way, Ivo said. Now, Will Ospreay held talks with WWE and All Elite Wrestling, ultimately opting to sign with AEW. WWE reportedly offered Ospreay a lot less money than Tony Khan's promotion. Triple H later stated ahead of WrestleMania 40, without naming Ospreay directly, that talent who weren't in it for the grind had no business being in WWE. This was assumed to be a shot at Ospreay, and the man himself thought so, giving a shot back on the April 10th edition of Dynamite by saying that Triple H only reached his position by grinding on the boss's daughter. The back and forth shots ultimately settled down following April's AEW Dynasty pay-per-view. Now, a bit of an update here when it comes to the lawsuit involving Vince McMahon, John Laurenitis, and WWE filed by former WWE employee Janelle Grant. Now, this is certainly very interesting. Representatives for former WWE employee Janelle Grant are not ruling out further legal action against Carlin Colker, the doctor connected to Peak Wellness, who was recommended to Grant allegedly by Vince McMahon. Attorneys for Grant recently filed their opposition to Colker's motion to dismiss their bill of discovery petition. Grant's attorneys are seeking medical records related to the lawsuit she filed against McMahon, John Laurenitis, and WWE, with Grant claiming that medical records she had received so far were incomplete and inaccurate. During a press briefing, attorney Erica Nolan stressed the importance of the medical records, noting they may prove that Colker and Peak Wellness were involved in McMahon's alleged coercive control of Grant. Quote, we believe Dr. Colker is withholding Janelle's medical and billing records because they may prove that he and Peak Wellness were involved in McMahon's abuse, exploitation, and violence against Janelle, Nolan said. Continuing, Nolan added that they weren't ruling out further legal action against Colker or those connected to Peak Wellness, saying, quote, we aim to hold all parties accountable to the fullest extent of the law, assuring those who created, perpetrated, concealed, and benefited from Janelle's abuse never have the opportunity to hurt anyone else. Grant's lawsuit is currently paused until December 11th, while attorneys for the Southern District of New York investigate allegations of sex trafficking and sexual misconduct against Vince McMahon stretching back to 1986. Now, in addition to that, of course, as mentioned earlier on, it wasn't just Vince McMahon and WWE named in the lawsuit, it was also John Laurenitis, and a bit of an update when it comes to his marital status following this lawsuit. Appearing on the Nikki and Brie show with Brie Garcia, Kathy Collis confirmed she was divorced from John Laurenitis. Brie said, quote, it's fine to tell everyone that you're divorced. She's not single and ready to mingle, by no means. She is, I feel like, enjoying your independent time. People are curious to know where you're at. Collis added, quote, the thing is, Brie is very protective. It's because Brie's not going through it. If Brie was going through something, and Nicole, I would be very protective. I will tell you how the experience is from someone that goes through it. You need time. You need silence. This is for anyone. We all have our own stories and we all have our own challenges. My thought is, let yourself feel every emotion. One day life is fine, the next day you're hit with something that just rocks your world. You actually feel a paralysis to yourself. If you stay on any type of social media, everyone has great advice, what they think is advice, and they have no idea what you're going through. You need people to give people grace, everyone involved, whether you're siding with one person or the other. Give everybody grace. As a person going through it, you need to feel anger, heartbreak, sadness, and recovery. Our body is made to feel emotion. When you tuck an emotion away, it will find its way out. My recommendation for anybody going through anything challenging, give yourself some grace, allow yourself to feel all the emotions that you feel, and sit in silence and appreciate yourself. You will get through this. If you need outside help to get through it, seek outside help. In regards to the haters, you're going to hate. Maybe find it in yourself to give everyone grace. Hopefully, you're not treating people close to you with hate. Now, John Laurenitis and Kathy Collis were married in 2016. When exactly their divorce was finalized is unknown. John Laurenitis, as I mentioned, is one of the defendants in the lawsuit filed by Janelle Grant in January 2024, and he is accused of sexual assault. Within the lawsuit, Grant alleged that she was transferred to work under Laurenitis in talent relations in March 2021. Among the allegations, Grant claimed in the lawsuit that Laurenitis and Vince McMahon sexually assaulted her in Laurenitis' office when they pulled her in between them, forcibly touched her before ultimately putting her on top of a table between them. Now, WWE and Vince McMahon are other defendants in the lawsuit. Laurenitis initially claimed through his lawyer that he was a victim of Vince McMahon before he performed a U-turn and sided with the former WWE CEO, looking to compel arbitration. As I mentioned, this lawsuit, though, is currently on pause. Now, speaking of this lawsuit, of course, one person, well, not explicitly named in the lawsuit, but featured in it was former WWE and UFC champion Brock Lesnar. Now, Lesnar has been out of action for well over a year, and there are no plans reportedly for him to return right now, at least per sources within WWE. Now, we spoke about this morning. Rumors emerged on October 15th that Brock Lesnar and WWE had been in talks, and the company was considering bringing him back. That was denied within the company on a high level, according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, with one source saying, quote, "There are no creative plans in place for Lesnar, and if conversations have occurred, we've not been briefed on that," end quote. Now, earlier this year, Lesnar was referenced in a lawsuit against WWE and Vince McMahon and has been on the sidelines ever since. Lesnar was planned for the Royal Rumble, but his travel was cancelled, and it was immediately removed from all creative plans within the organization moving forward. Lesnar was set to start a major program with Gunther that would have carried into WrestleMania. WWE also went to great expense and inconvenience to have Lesnar removed from the WWE 2K25 video game outside of his inclusion in a few game modes and other properties. Lesnar's merchandise was ordered to be listed at reduced rates, and sources that Fightful have spoken to say that new products have not been creative featuring him on that front. A WWE higher-up actually reached out to Fightful in April to state back then that Lesnar was not immediately returning, as there were inquiries from another outlet that had been convinced he was set to come back at WrestleMania, which was never a plan. Fightful have been told that Lesnar is among a couple of other names that were not mentioned on WWE and were not meant to be mentioned on WWE over the last couple of months. Lesnar was not to be brought up in video packages, mentioned on promos, or referenced by commentary if it could be avoided. Now, this past week, Lesnar was referenced by a nickname in a Raw promo by Cody Rhodes, but those close to Rhodes had heard nothing of a status change for Lesnar as of this past week. Now, despite Triple H saying that Lesnar could be back in the fold at a recent event, Fightful have been told that he's not been brought up creatively in quite some time. One source in creative told Fightful they haven't heard any updates regarding Lesnar in months, with another saying they'd be surprised if Lesnar was brought back in the middle of a federal investigation. Of course, if we get any more details, we'll let you know in a future video. Now, many people are wondering just what's going on with AEW's Library and the Max streaming service. We know AEW is coming to Max next year. Collision, Dynamite, Simulcast. We know the Library is coming at some point, but when? Well, 2025 will mark a dawn of a new era for All Elite Wrestling as the company's new media rights deal with Warner Bros. Discovery comes into effect. With the deal, AEW Dynamite and AEW Collision will be streamed live on Max for the first time alongside their regular air times on TBS and TNT, and the company's back catalogue will also be added. However, there has been some confusion as to whether all of AEW's archives will be uploaded, and if so, when that will happen. Dave Meltzer cleared up some of this confusion on a recent Wrestling Observer Radio. He said, quote, "The answer is yes," Meltzer said. "It may not all be up immediately, like all the AEW archives will be up on Max next year, but they go to Max January 1st, and it's not like instantly all of these archives, all of these episodes of Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision are going to be up on Max. They will be slowly rolled out, as will the pay-per-views will be slowly rolled out. But in time, yes, the entire library will be on Max. That's one of the reasons they got the $185 million a year. It's not just, it is for new programming, just Dynamite and Collision, but the entire library being on Max is also part of that deal. And the pay-per-views being on Max whenever that starts, which will not be that quick. Now, speaking of this new media rights deal, Battle of the Bouts. We spoke about this the other day, but it looks to be a bit more confirmation on just the lack of future for these AEW television specials. Although All Elite Wrestling have the option to shop the series around, the promotion's Battle of the Bouts specials are on course to be scrapped by the end of 2024. AEW and Warner Bros. Discovery recently put pen to paper on a brand new 3-year television deal with approximately $185 million per year that will keep them running from January 2025 through December 2027 on the networks. Now, the new deal will keep AEW Dynamite and Collision on WBD TV stations, as well as simulcast on Max, as we mentioned previously. Now, AEW Rampage and Battle of the Bouts were not mentioned within the new TV deal, and it was noted soon after that Rampage was possibly set to be cancelled. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer has now reported that Battle of the Bouts can't be officially labelled as dead, but there are no plans to run the special within the new TV deal. This would mean, unless AEW plan to find a new home for Battle of the Bouts, the series will come to an end later this year. Now, Battle of the Bouts was initially created to be AEW's version of Clash of the Champions. The show featured a couple of title changes on the early editions in 2022, but Battle of the Bouts soon dwindled in importance, and the most recent Battle of the Bouts featured 2 eliminator matches, and the Von Erichs and Dustin Rhodes winning the vacant Ring of Honor World 6-Man Tag Team Championships. Now, let's go over to WWE NXT, and possibly a faction that could be headed to the main roster. Metaphor could end up being a staple of WWE's biggest shows. Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend made their main roster debuts on the October 11th episode of Friday Night SmackDown, unsuccessfully challenging for the women's tag team titles. Lash and Jack then appeared on Monday's Raw, costing Damage Control their own shot at the tag titles. According to Ibo on the Wrestle Purist Raw review, Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson are currently having a trial run on the main roster, as WWE believes the whole Metaphor faction has main roster upside. The trial run for Jackson and Legend also coincides with Noam Dar being close to being cleared for an in-ring return. Quote, they're giving them the opportunity to just evaluate them. People officially in WWE like the charisma the two have, specifically Lash Legend. Noam Dar is close to being cleared, and WWE thinks that Metaphor have main roster upside, and they're giving them a bit of a trial run. That's the Metaphor girls in this case, because the thinking in the company is, of course, Noam Dar is a main roster level wrestler. Can the ladies hang on the main roster and look professional? And if they can, we'll just keep them up here. Otherwise, that's fine. We get a cool evaluation of them. They'll take some more time and reinstate the Metaphor in NXT for a little bit, and we'll circle back to this around draft season, if not later next year. That's the kind of situation with that. Now, Metaphor, the faction consisting of Noam Dar, Oro Mensah, Lash Legend, and Jakara Jackson, have been together since May 2023 and established themselves as a popular act on WWE NXT. Now, a big match possibly is set for the upcoming Survivor Series Premium Live event next month for the World Heavyweight Championship. Ibo of Wrestle Purist has reported that CM Punk is planning to challenge Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship at the Survivor Series pay-per-view. The show will emanate from Rogers Arena in Vancouver on Saturday, November 30. It was noted earlier this year that Gunther vs CM Punk was on the table for Survivor Series, but the match has seemingly been locked in for the November 30 event. Punk, he's currently off WWE television, having announced on Raw after Bad Blood that he would be taking some time off, and he wasn't sure when he would be back. The former WWE champion is only planned to miss one major WWE show in Crown Jewel. There is no word on why Punk will miss Crown Jewel, but he has been vocal about Saudi Arabia in the past, telling The Miz in 2020 to go suck a blood money covered DI, you can fill in the rest, in Saudi Arabia, you effing dork. Now, Gunther is officially planned to face undisputed WWE champion Cody Rhodes at Crown Jewel. The winner will earn the Crown Jewel Championship. And an interesting report here when it comes to Scott D'Amore and possibly a non-compete that was previously in place following his TNA Wrestling departure. Scott D'Amore is starting his next project this weekend, but had to work out contractually the ability to do it. D'Amore was let go from TNA Wrestling earlier this year after an extended period heading up the company. However, he's still being paid for a full year after the fact and actually had a non-compete that would have extended to that point. Fightful selector Sean Ross Sapp spoke to D'Amore, who was asked if there were any restrictions initially on his severance. DeOr confirmed that originally he did have a non-compete, and the two sides were able to work that out, giving him the ability to run Maple Leaf Wrestling. DeOr is promoting Maple Leaf Wrestling Forged in Excellence this weekend from Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Both shows are available on Triller TV. And finally, we have the ratings for Monday's edition of Raw on USA Network. Of course, this was taped last week as WWE is over here in Europe. October has been a month of changes for Raw, with the red brand going from 3 hours to 2 and finding itself going against both Monday Night Football and the Major League Baseball playoffs. Despite that, ratings for Raw have held relatively firm, a trend that continued this past week despite the tough competition. WrestleNomics and Programming Insider report that Monday's show drew 1.539 million viewers, along with a 0.44 in the coveted 18 to 49 demographic. While total viewership was down from last week's 1.545, the drop was so inconsequential that there was no percentage drop this week over the last week. The same cannot be said for the 18 to 49 demo, which declined 6% from last week's 0.47. Against the 4-week average, the total viewership was up 4% from 1.477, while 18 to 49 was down 6% from a 0.47, identical to the week-over-week drop. The numbers were good enough that Raw wound up 4th for the night on cable, trailing only the Buffalo Bills versus New York Jets and Game 1 of the ALCS between the New York Yankees and Cleveland Guardians. The former drew a combined 17.201 million viewers and a 4.29 in the 18 to 49 between broadcasts on ABC, ESPN and ESPN2, while the latter drew 3.820 million and a 0.89 on TBS. Having been taped the week prior to the promotion's international tour, Raw featured a confrontation between undisputed WWE champion Cody Rhodes and the World Heavyweight champion Gunther, who are set to collide at Crown Jewel with the newly created Crown Jewel Championship on the line. Meanwhile, Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair defended the Women's Tag Team Championships against Io Sky and Kairi Sane of Damage Control. But there you go, guys, the latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.